Hey there, I'm your host, Ricky Shockley with MedSpa Magic Marketing, and this is the MedSpa Success Strategies podcast, where MedSpa and aesthetics practice owners come to discover strategies and tactics that help them better market and manage their practices so they can grow, improve profitability, and have greater impact for their teams, their patients, and themselves. Excited today to be joined by Dr. Alex Roher. Dr. Roher remains a practicing board-certified anesthesiologist, but his real passion remains helping people change their lives for the better. Back in 2012, Dr. Roher opened SD Botox with the desire to help people achieve enhancements with minimally invasive cosmetic procedures and micro-treatments. Since then, SD Botox has been a groundbreaking endeavor. Dr. Roher has helped tens of thousands of patients achieve amazing results, and he's done so in a warm, relaxing environment. Dr. Roher, we're really excited to have you today. Can you start by just giving the audience a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, so my name is Dr. Alex Roher. I went a very traditional route. Did undergrad in med school at the University of Arizona, and then my residency in anesthesiology at Loma Linda. And then came down, moved to San Diego maybe 12, 13 years ago, graduated after finishing residency, and practiced full-time anesthesia for about maybe, I want to say like 7 years. Pretty early on in my anesthesia career, I started a company called SD Botox. SD is San Diego. Botox doesn't need any explanation, obviously. And I called it SD Botox just because it was my little side hustle, and all I knew how to do was Botox. Didn't know how to do filler. Didn't know anything about lasers and wellness. Learned all that as I went along. Didn't have any business background. But SD Botox, no one came in for a couple of months, and then slowly started trickling in, and then got pretty busy. It took me about a year or two to ramp up. And then there was another med spa, and they had racked up a huge bill with Allergan, and so they couldn't buy Botox from Allergan again anymore. So I started selling them Botox. Wasn't even making money on them, just kind of being neighborly. And then one day they approached me and like, well, we're underwater. Will you buy us out? And I never really thought about second office acquisition, etc. But I went and looked at it, met the staff, everything felt right, got a great deal on it. So bought it, and that's the one that really exploded. So then I had a conversation maybe 6 months later with my wife, and I said, I don't want to do anesthesia anymore. When my mind goes idle, I don't think about putting patients to sleep or an epidural. I think about aesthetics. I think about like the business behind it all. And she was super cool about it. She's like, all right, go for it. I really thought that first year my income would go down, but it went up. And so I learned that, that I loved I love this field because in traditional medicine, it's like you're sick or you're healthy, then you're sick, and then we hope to get you healthy again. Like if you need surgery, need pills, whatever. But here it's like we're just optimizing people, be it aesthetically or wellness. And so everyone's so happy to be there. It's fee for service. Everyone just, as everyone knows on this podcast, they just pay for your Botox on your way out, whatever. And so I really started to love this business at that point. And then COVID happened, and kind of like, I think it's Warren Buffett, he said, when others panic, I buy. And so I actually acquired 3 or 4 new practices during that time for kind of really good deals. It's harder to find those deals now because venture capitalists and private equity have come in, kind of ruined all my fun in that respect. Now we're doing more de novos, but yeah, just picked up a bunch more. Now we're up to 7 offices in San Diego, 2 in Texas, 1 in Austin and 1 in Killeen, which is this little city around Austin. And then I've kind of like made some spin-off businesses that kind of similar industry, but not quite pure aesthetics. We get into that later if you want.
Yeah, Dr. Roher, do those spin-off businesses, so that would be the hormone, weight loss, and hair transplant businesses we talked about. And you mentioned they kind of operate as like sub-brands of SD Botox, right?
Yes.
Do they work inside of the same offices, these expanded office, like these other businesses?
We tried that. We had some offices that were like a hybrid. But honestly, businesses do better when they're freestanding. So they're not in the same building. They're just freestanding. So the main business is SD Botox, which is aesthetics. And then I didn't want to put all the wellness in there. I don't even want IVs in there, really. We do a lot of GLP-1s there because obviously weight management is both wellness, to prevent metabolic disease, etc. But it's also aesthetic. Everyone wants to look at it. And typically that for a lot of people, that involves weight loss. So that's really the only service that is offered both at SD Botox and my Hormones and Wellness by SD Botox brand. They then take it further and they offer hormone replacement primarily. So we specialize largely in, we have a lot of men, but I love taking care of perimenopausal women. Oftentimes, people, like, because I'm still a provider myself, I still work Tuesday and Wednesday. So a patient will come in to see me and she's, let's say 45-year-old woman. She came in for Botox. I'm taking care of that. I'm asking her questions about her, how she's sleeping, her body composition changes, her mood, her energy, sex drive, etc. And at the end, she ends up going to one of my other offices, getting her labs drawn and starting on, the appropriate hormones. And then I see her again maybe 3, 4 months later, and she's like, my life is so much better. I appreciate that so much. It was like she was there for Botox, and I say it's like polishing the brass on the Titanic. It's like the ship is going down. Like, let's definitely do the Botox. That's important, but let's see if we can't help you further. And I love this industry as I love that people come for one thing and it just becomes like it just it changes their life. And this is like the conduit, like how they enter this part of the medical system.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that. Like you said, it's like it's getting them beyond baseline. Like in the medical side, you're getting people sick and trying to get them back to baseline. In the aesthetic side, you get to have a little bit more fun and enjoyment at times because you're getting people beyond their baseline, even better than they were before when they came in.
exactly. I mean,
So
Botox is literally needles in your face, and they're so excited to be. They're just like leaning
yeah.
into it.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously that's interesting. I feel like a lot of people that are listening to this probably really struggle with the idea that somebody's coming in for Botox and I'm going to convince them to do hormones. I guess two questions on that. Do you find that you have unique success communicating that? Do your other providers have that same success in terms of being able to convert like a Botox client into a hormone client?
Some do. We have 21 providers. I'd say there's like 3 superstars that send patients that direction. Oftentimes with our compensation model, they don't get anything for doing that. And so,
Yeah.
but they do it because they have a good relationship with their patient. They want what's best for their patient. Oftentimes if they're trying to sell something, it's more like a new service for themselves, which is fine, which I love too. I'm not knocking
Yeah.
that. But it's more like aesthetic to aesthetic as opposed to aesthetic to wellness.
Yeah.
So, but I do have like the employees get great pricing at, of each company, they get great pricing. So they do know each other. When we do company events, I invite both companies, the aesthetic side and the hormones and wellness side. So there's a lot of like, there's a relationship there. And then we all have really good employee pricing where a lot of my aesthetic providers um, end up, getting on hormones or peptides, whatever, using the facility for, we also have like infrared saunas, cold plunges, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen, red light, etc. So a lot of them go there and then they just know the brand and they just want to do what's best for the patient sitting in the chair. And that oftentimes involves some of the hormones and wellness side.
That makes sense. Random aside, but based on that answer, I had another question. Those other services like cryo, red light, those types of things, we've talked about that in some recent episodes. On those services, do you find like in our conversation just before this, we talked about sometimes you're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole when you're selling a service that like there are certain things that are your gateway drug that are going to generate the relationship, the initiation of the relationship, and then you're cross-selling or referring them into some of these other services. Do you find that bucket, like the red light type stuff, is that generally coming from existing clients that already know, like, and trust you moving into those services? Or is there a healthy customer base of people that are just coming straight for those services as like the origin of the relationship?
Yeah, I would say both, but I think there's more of the patients that are coming with the initial thought of doing the wellness and health side. We do send a lot from
Yeah.
aesthetic to wellness, but a majority of people, it's a different patient base. I would say, it's closer to 50-50 men and women over at Hormones and Wellness, as opposed to like 80-20 women versus men in the aesthetic side. And it's also just a different type of patient. Like there is a lot of crossover, but it's also some people don't care how they look so much. Like wrinkles don't bother them, but they are all about like, like we have DEXA scans and they're just like, how do I get my body fat down to 9%? So it's like,
Yeah.
so there's a crossover, but I would say overall, most patients enter for the hormones and wellness for the health side. And then Yeah, sorry.
No, that's a good answer. And this is kind of a broad question too, but kind of just going back to thinking about you started this as an anesthesiologist. I guess follow up question to that even. Were you working as an anesthesiologist full time while you were starting the med spa, or did you scale back your schedule as you made that transition gradually? Or was it
Mm, yeah, that's a good question. So, my first job in San Diego was at a hospital that was smaller and communal hospital, and it was pretty light. I was probably working 35 hours a week. So that's when I started it. I then switched to a bigger hospital system that was, pushing 50 hours a week. And that's when I had to bring on a nurse, my first nurse, to help kind of lighten my load. That
yeah.
initially, like when I think people start med spas, they brand themselves, which I think is smart. You got to brand it because that's how you get the name, you get the reputation. People, want to come see you. But then as you bring on ancillary staff, everyone wants to see you and no one wants to see Patty. And so I'm like, oh my God, like, so I had to like purposely, consciously, and if there are marketing, like unbrand myself and then mark Dr. Roher, and I had to brand SD Botox. Then as we have scaled, it's almost like we're at a point where I'm trying to rebrand myself, like doing podcasts like this and just like on the website more prominent and just almost like it needs a face again. And it's like my schedule is full enough and I'm not going to work more clinical hours. So it's really just to kind of build the halo effect from Dr. Rower onto the rest of the brand.
Yeah, we've talked about that quite a bit. It's like I think it does help to have a face with the business that is I think just this is a business that's based on personalities and no like and trust component. And it's a balance of trying to figure out how do you serve as the face of the business from a branding standpoint without creating the expectation that you're the one actually delivering service and sort of
Right.
pass that credibility through to the providers. Is there anything that you think about that helps you do that? Or is it just the halo effect essentially? Or is there
Mm,
anything else you do to try to make sure that those people are like that they know that Dr. Rohr, he's the face of the business, and whatever he does systematically process the way that he wants to treat is also going to be done by the providers and the people that you hire?
yeah. So what I like to do is I like to have patients, like I obviously can't see every new patient, but I try to see a lot of new patients, kind of establish that trust, like they know they're seeing the owner, et cetera. And then I try to recommend services that I don't do. So all I do is injectables, Botox and fillers. I specialize in liquid nose jobs, but I try to then have the new patient establish a relationship with one of the other providers, and that too is they're going to have their ongoing relationship with. From a branding point of view, I am the face, but I mean, I'm booked a couple weeks out, so most patients know they can't. Like most patients that try to see me will or want they almost like prioritize being seen soon over being seen by me, which is perfect, which I'm
Yeah.
fine with. That's
Yeah.
because I love our I've
Yeah.
cherry picked, I've handpicked all these providers, and they're awesome. So feel good about wherever they
That
end up.
that's interesting in terms of like the time allocation and the strategy because what we've heard a lot of people try to do is the exact opposite of that. Especially like if somebody started running ads or trying to do something to acquire new patients, they're like, okay, we'll just give them to the new person. We'll build their base up that. But the challenge sometimes with giving those to the new person is that person's the least equipped to give someone the confidence that they've come to the right place. So you're kind of
Hmm.
prioritizing still like you want somebody that's like that you really either yourself or somebody that's really high up in your organization that you really trust in terms of their experience, their expertise, their ability to demonstrate those things to kind of have some of the first touch points with clients ideally because that establishes the relationship and then you're able to kind of pass them off and hand the baton to the person that's providing service. That's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people try to do the opposite and it feels like a mistake to me. So that was interesting that you mentioned that. You,
Yeah, and we follow retention. We define it as the patient comes back within 4 months. So we have those metrics on all the providers. We have KPIs, like we know how everyone's doing from everything from like average ticket spend, revenue per hour, alternate modalities, so non-injectables, um, even Botox waste. We've really matured as a company in that respect, and we review those numbers on a weekly basis for specifically any outliers. But we do have a little bit of the model where we could see how people are doing, and then we could preferentially pull that lever and have the call center book that provider. And
yeah.
there's also different types of providers. We allow providers to kind of have their own style, and so the call center once a month spends a day with a different provider, and they see how they do things, and then they get a feel for the patient on the phone, and then they feel like they can, one, they can credential them better, but two, they can match that patient to the provider that would be like a good personality or what they're looking for fit.
Yeah, awesome. This episode is brought to you by MedSpa Magic Marketing, my agency. We help med spas and aesthetics practices grow with more effective marketing strategies. And I know that's a vague phrase, right? It's a vague claim. So I have an offer for you. I offer this to any new prospects. If you're interested in exploring another marketing option, a new agency, or just getting into Facebook, Instagram, Google Ads for the first time, I'd love to show you why we're different, what we're doing for clients. And we can do that via a 1.5 hour planning session where I'll outline a specific marketing plan, and I'll give you all of the blueprints that we would implement if we were to do business together. Now, you can take that, use that on your own, hire someone else to help you execute it, or work with us. We really don't hold anything back on that strategy call. And I think you'll have a lot of confidence in how you manage your marketing investment moving forward, understanding some of the nuances that can help you implement more effective marketing strategies for your business. So if you want to do that, you can go to medspamagicmarketing.com. Being really good with the metrics, I think, is insanely important. But just like your background, you have a lot of people in the space that come from the medical side, and the business side is kind of like hard to learn. It's not the thing that comes naturally to them, and that's where a lot of businesses struggle. It's obvious that you've really gotten very good at the business side of what you're doing. I think that's evident in just the fact that as these other businesses around you were closing, you were the one buying them up and not vice versa. How did you go about managing that transition to like, hey, I'm coming from medical school, I'm an anesthesiologist, I'm starting to do injections. Now I've got to figure out how to be a business person, especially with the scale and multiple locations. Is there anything that you've done to be intentional about that growth?
Yeah, I think one thing initially is that a lot of people want to do this and they're just scared. So be willing to take that leap, I think is, obviously, the type of personality that I think like a lot of people go into medicine because the only real barrier for physicians is getting into medical school. But once you're in medical school, which is difficult, like 99% of the students graduate and everyone gets a residency. It may not be in the subspecialty you want or in the institution you want, but everyone gets something and then everyone graduates, everyone makes let's make up a number like $350,000 a year. And so, but it's not, it's like this, 350, 350, 350, et cetera. Maybe a little up, a little down, but it's not the wild fluctuations of like a business. And so I think a lot of the personality in medicine, but probably on the nursing side as well, are risk adverse and just want kind of that, that good steady paycheck, that like security of knowing that. And so I think just willingness to take that leap is one thing that has served me well. I think as far as the business side, I did get I wanted to take business golf. I wanted to take golf in college, and you only was only open to if you're a business minor or a physical education major. And so I did end up getting a minor in business. Um, but I don't think I got that much out of it. I mean, the golf class was awesome,
Yeah.
obviously, but like, I don't know the accounting and like, didn't get an
Yeah.
MBA certainly. Since finishing, it's kind of like learn as you go, trial by fire. Like someone said, like running a business is like flying a plane while trying to paint it. And it's true. It's just like, there's so much you're not going to anticipate and you're going to have to figure out on the way. You're going to make mistakes. You have to reframe them in your mind as opportunities, and like you really have to you just have to like kind of have that mindset and you have to be willing to fail. I've failed many times. I mean, I could go into that if you want. And then I read business books. One great one is Traction by Gino Wickman. I'm sure it's floating around my office here somewhere.
Do you all
Um,
implement EOS in the organization?
we never fully implemented it, to be honest. We didn't get like but we structured the company, we structured the business meetings. We never got like an EOS implementer and like, come in and professionally do that.
I'm still here. I don't know why
Okay.
my camera cut off. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. And then I've kind of gone through like the business groups too. So I started out in something called EO, Entrepreneur Organization, and there's minimums of how you have to make and et cetera. And then to join these groups, they have chapters every city, and then they have like, you're within the chapter, which is like let's say 100 people, you have a forum, which is a group of like let's say 8 to 10 people where you go deep, you talk about your top 5% and bottom 5% of your personal life, your family life, and your business life. And obviously, it's weighted more towards the business in most cases, unless someone's going through something. And so that's always been helpful. I went from EO to Vistage to YPO, and that's the one I'm in right now. Um, And so
So
it's a
you've been
network of
very
people.
intentional about it though, essentially. Very intentional about like keeping like I understand now I'm running a business. This is part of my job is to be a business person, not just a medical provider.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. And it's tough to wear those hats. It's like the Mondays are my admin days. We're doing this podcast on a Monday, and I just stock it with meetings. We have our big company meeting with all my like marketing and ops and finance, etc. Um, and then Tuesdays and Wednesdays I'm clinical. Thursdays I'm it's kind of like my outside interest, my other side of the businesses days. I try to keep all that then. And then I have two kids, I'm sorry, 6 and 7. So my weekends kind of belong to them. So Friday is like my day where I golf or boat or, I do something more adult, more, something for me.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of wearing the multiple hats, that can be a major challenge and trying to figure out when to take some of those hats off of your plate. Like you mentioned early on when you were transitioning, you still had the job in anesthesiology. You had to hire a nurse. You had to have somebody else kind of helping with just some of the fulfillment, right? Like actually serving the clients. How have you thought about, first of all, managing the schedule of wearing multiple hats? Because most people in their businesses, I mean, we all like to think we're just going to be the CEO and we're going to work on CEO problems, but there are 97 other things that we're probably doing or that are falling under that CEO bucket at the very least. How do you think about managing your time and how do you think about when it's time to delegate and put those responsibilities on somebody else on your team?
Yeah, I think we're a certain size now where it's like 95% delegation, to be honest. I have a super strong COO, Rochelle, and she's yeah, I mean, I put a fair amount on her, to be honest. She does a great job. She really does the day to day, the kind of stuff that bogs me down, so I could focus on big picture and clinical care, both as the provider as well as the chief medical officer, knowing what to bring on, how to deal with complications, etc., writing protocol. And so, but it's tough when you're transitioning from small to big to know when to bring what on because we've definitely been too fat at times at the admin level, and that is one metric I look at is um, how much of our labor, HR, how much of our payroll goes towards like revenue generating positions, being like
Yep.
front desk,
Yeah.
provider, manager, even, and how much is admin being, like all these other things I was talking about, like marketing, ops, you know, um, accounting, call center, etc. And so I look at that. It was close to 50-50 at one point, and that was troubling. But now we're
We're
getting.
there right now, so I feel that pain exactly.
Are you scaling as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you think that's just a point where you're trying to build that infrastructure because you need those roles, but now it does throw those ratios off and then you do settle into a place that's a little bit healthier?
Yeah, it's kind of like taking that leap. It's almost like you have to hire for a position that you don't fully need yet at times. Sometimes you're too late and you're like, you hire for that position, you realize you needed it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's very much a feel. And then once you get bigger, you make your org chart, and like, so everyone from the top to the bottom knows who to call for what. Um, and I'll be honest, like Rochelle really helped with a lot of that. She came from the corporate side. And so, and then as a company matures too, it's like, I used to go out and have fun with all my providers and front desk, et cetera. And now we're a certain size where it's like, it's just like, I don't like it. I don't want to say we're corporate, and we do company events together, but I'm not regularly going out with the staff. It's just not a
Yeah.
good idea anymore. So it does lose a little bit of that like fun mom and pop, like we're all in this together, let's party feel. But
Yep.
it's a life cycle of a business. It's the maturation of it, and it's every phase of it has had. It's like I joke that it's like my baby. Like I have like I said, a 6 and a 7-year-old. Like all SD Botox, my like 13-year-old. When things aren't going well, like a 13-year-old, like like all those hormones, etc. It's going through some stuff. But yeah, you just have to be able to kind of compartmentalize all the things that are going on, the good and the bad, and just like there's a good book. It's called Atomic Habits. Most people have probably read it, but it wasn't even about the
Yeah.
habits part. It was just kind of about like the first couple chapters are when you think back about a business, it isn't necessarily like the three big decisions you made that have made it what it is. It's those little incremental day to day 1% gains, or like that really like draw you from like a small little, renting a room in an esthetician's office to having 7, 9, 13 locations. So, yeah, I mean, again, I
Uh,
go back to traction. Gino Wickman, he calls it letting go of I forgot what it was. He's like hanging on to like a little plant, like on a cliff. And from some point, you just have to like kind of relinquish control and allow the people you hire to do what you hired them for.
You mentioned this like COO role being really important to your current operations. What level do you think that position makes sense to hire for? When is the right time ish?
Um, Again, I would say when you're multi-location, I would say, 3-ish probably makes sense. And I've gone through also like the type of person that would accept the pay and have the skill set to take you from like 1 to 2 isn't the same person that could take you from like, 7 to 13, so it's like you
Yeah,
can't have the perfect person right away. And so oftentimes there's some tough conversations where you have to replace people with kind of level up people. And that's been difficult, but someone once said, your success is directly proportionate to the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And
yeah.
I don't consider myself I don't like confrontation, but I'm willing to for the betterment of this company and everyone in it.
Yeah, that's definitely I think a major challenge for growing businesses. Hey there, wanted to briefly interrupt the episode to make a quick ask. If you're a podcast listener, it would mean the world to us if you leave a review for the podcast, whether that's on iTunes or Spotify. It's something I hadn't really remembered or thought of asking for, but it does help us show up more frequently so that we can reach more people with the information that we're providing. So it would mean the world to us if you'd leave a review on iTunes or Spotify if you're listening on audio. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you're in the loop for future videos and you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out. What, from a high, just overall standpoint here, you've been very successful in your ability to grow this business from even the early days, it seems. All right. Like it established, it built some momentum. You were able to acquire that first location. Then you're building additional locations. I think a lot of med spas, a lot of businesses in general, they feel like they're kind of hitting a wall constantly where it feels like, I don't know, they get a step ahead, they fall a step behind, and they
Mm.
sort of fall into a place where it's just stagnant. What's allowed you to be very like growth focused, growth oriented? Is it just serving patients well, reputation? What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, you definitely need a good reputation. But you also have to have a growth mindset. You also have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to forgive yourself. You have to, I mean, that's like the ultimate, that's stronger than any MBA. Is just like life experience, especially specific to the industry that you're in. Um, and and so, I've closed offices, I've closed businesses, like side hustles. I've definitely experienced all that. But it's just like at the end of the day, do you make more good decisions than bad decisions? And like I was saying, are you doing that like 1% growth a week, or not necessarily even financial growth, just like betterment of the company, the
Yeah.
culture, the feel, like some future opportunity. Just always be striving. Always have your business in the back of your mind and apply whatever you're going through in life to it. Like opportunities come up in the craziest places. You know, I had a exterminator come to my house um and they left a review on, or like a note on my door, a little hanger, and they were like, if it was great, let us know and we'll bonus this guy. So we started doing that, like leave us a review on Google, Yelp, whatever, and we'll bonus we'll tip
Oh,
that
that's a
provider
cool
on
idea.
your behalf. Yeah, I don't want
Yeah.
to give away all the company secrets here, but that was a
Yeah.
good one.
So that is a really
You guys
good
can
one.
have that one,
I
that
love
pearl
that.
right there. But
Yeah,
like,
that's a good pearl.
but yeah, I mean that's just one example. Like I took something that was from literally the exterminator to
Yeah.
Botox, and it's been like just so it's kind of like just like you want a clear mind so that you can really focus on growth. And like obviously personal things happen, and you don't have it for a while. Also, I think I swing between kind of like growth and lifestyle business, meaning lifestyle being like I'm gonna travel, 16 weeks this year or something, and then there's years where I travel like 2 weeks because I'm just like head down, like go go go, and so it's like I think that's healthy. I think vacations are
Yeah.
so healthy. Like just like I always come back inspired with something. It's like it's not even my intention, but just kind of like my mind goes to a kind of a clear place where I'm able to look at the business from a different point of view.
Are those typically family vacations, you and your wife? Like, what are those?
Yeah, it's a mix. Sometimes it's just me and my wife. Sometimes it's probably primarily me and my wife and my kids. Like we went to Africa and we actually traveled for 35 days this summer. It was crazy. If
Oh,
like my
cool.
somehow my daughter, my 6-year-old decided that we packed for 35 days and like halfway through the trip she decided her favorite color was blue and not pink anymore. So every day it was like a battle to get her to pick. And then like to wear clothes and then she
Uh,
didn't want to take her malaria pill because it's like, she's 6 years old, it's
yeah.
bitter, it's gross. So my day would be like bookended with like arguments with my 6-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
But it is something that I want to continue. I do think like, family's so important. That's why we do all this, everyone. So it's like make
Yeah,
sure
the
you
business
all
has to be here to serve you in a sense. Like if we're just like if the
exactly.
business owns us and all we're doing is sitting here pulling out our hair trying to make business things happen, that's not really what we want to do long term. I don't think that's what
And
any of
don't be
us want to do
discouraged
long
if
term.
there are time periods where that is the case, like just know that
Yeah.
there will be time periods where it's not, like especially businesses tend to be very front loaded, like not like there's no such thing as passive income like ever. Like I mean, and sometimes I could be on a vacation if something's not going well in the business. Like I could literally be on like a yacht in, I'm not saying yacht, but a boat, let's say, like in like the Mediterranean, and my mind is
Yeah.
literally thinking about. So I might really physically I'm there, but if I'm you know,
Mhm.
if I'm thinking about
Yeah.
work all day, then that's not vacation.
Yeah, so do it at a time that feels right. Make sure you have your ducks in a row because yeah, it ruins it. If you feel like there's major fires you're trying to put out or big problems you're trying to solve, maybe
Oh
that's
yeah,
not the time, that's not the period to take that vacation because like I've
right,
experienced that. You're not going to enjoy it anyways.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to be like
With
very present. We all do, gratitude, etc. It's an ongoing battle for everyone, I'm sure.
for sure. The expansion strategy of like kind of buying like the failed med spas. What do you see commonly that's going wrong in the med spas that are failing that you end up acquiring?
It's changed a little bit. I think initially I was getting a lot of just like solo provider, like a nurse that just over her head, his or her head, and just kind of doesn't understand the business, like all the aspects of it. And so stay shut down or we buy their assets or, like we'll take over. Right now I'm seeing a lot of the private equity, that first round, those guys are failing. They didn't really understand the business. I'm sure they're master at spreadsheets. And I think they're
Yeah.
beginning to understand the business. But I think that initial like pop of PE coming into this world in like maybe 2021-ish, I think those ones they I wouldn't say underestimated, but didn't understand what they were getting into, let's say. And so we're getting picking up a lot of those.
Yeah, there's a really interesting video on kind of that topic from a guy named Michael Girdley on YouTube. I stumbled across it on accident, but it was a really good little analysis of like the private equity and all the people that thought they were going to come in and use the med spa space as just kind of like a cash cow and why it didn't quite work out for many of them and why he thought that just concept of like using this as a private equity play was a lot more complicated than people thought it was. I know we've got to wrap. I would love to do another episode. We've got so many other things we could talk about, barely scratched the surface, I feel like. But I did want to end on one question that I jotted down, which is you mentioned your providers, you're tracking all of these metrics related to like initial visit revenue, retention rates per providers. Two quick questions to wrap on that. One is, do you see a big disparity between your top performers and the bottom?
Yeah. Yeah, but it just depends on the metric because sometimes someone has awesome retention, but they're, you know, revenue per hour, Botox wastage, 50 other things they
Yeah.
struggle with. So it's all their personalities and they're all kind of all over. And we rarely have to do discipline based on that stuff. So I like that there isn't truly like an SD Botox way to do a consult. Like there is, but there's like they have a lot of freedom to do things the way they want to do, and we can tweak it. I can have them shadow other people that do something better. But I
Yeah.
do like that they have the. I know like Skin Spirit, for example, has the Skin Spirit way, and you have to do it that way. Like a 1 hour consult, you got to sell micro. It's just like that's not for me. Like I like places where people feel free to do it how they want, and then they could try something new, and then like, oh, that's a great growth opportunity right there. Maybe let's start doing it that way. Pick up that technique. I like, pick up that talk track, that pearl, whatever. So
Yeah.
so yeah, there is a lot of discrepancy. Depends on which metric you're talking about, but yeah, there's a fair. there's a big deviation for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you use lessons learned from the top performers? Like, hey, like this person, Sarah, she's actually killing it. Her rebooking rate's 16% higher than our average. Do
Yeah,
you try to figure out like what they're doing and coach the rest of the team on some of those things to improve?
we do. We do. We study it
Yeah.
ourselves, and then we also do peer to peer, where like quarterly we'll do our provider meeting, and we'll highlight someone that's killing it on, let's say, retention, your example, and they'll give a little
Mm.
talk on what they're specifically doing to get patients to rebook. You know, like last meeting we had one outlier that she saw. I think like 13% of her total sales was skincare. I think as their company average, I don't even want to say her number because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
So it's like we had her give a talk on like her talk tracks and how she's doing it, how she's like when she walks the patient to the front, she's putting the product on the count, you know, et cetera. So it was like I
Yeah,
think
that's so interesting. We have talked a lot about like the trying to figure out a way to make it consistent, trying to make sure that one provider to the next is more. But what you're doing is an interesting flip on that because the advantage that you have here is you're basically mass testing different ideas and different options, different ways of doing things.
exactly,
And then you're able to highlight the things that have worked. If you've got 10 people kind of doing things a little bit differently, you find the thing that's working best, you coach the team on that thing, and then you have another provider that's maybe doing like you said, selling product better than everybody else, and now she can share her secrets. So by giving the people the flexibility to do things their own way, you're getting an extra layer of testing to improve the overall performance of the business. That's really interesting. I never really thought of it that way before, but a cool tidbit. Dr. Roher, I know we're out of time. Can you tell people where they can learn more about you and some of your businesses, what you're all up to, so we can put those things in the show notes?
yes. So you could the company's called SD Botox. It's in San Diego and Texas, and just sdbotox.com. And then you could find me. I specialize in liquid nose jobs, so my Instagram and TikTok are Dr. Alex Knows Best. So DrAlex and then nose NOSE best. Um, and then we also have Aesthetic Training Academy. So that is the problem. The issue with this world is that every nurse I know wants to be in aesthetics, and once they know what they're doing, they're so invaluable. So it's like we created a training academy that's 4 weeks online, 1 week in person. You inject, I think, 22 patients with $6,600 of Botox and filler, and it's like, and then we have help job match through, I believe it's called JobSnob. And so, and we hire some too, obviously, that will cherry pick the best providers. Um, and so, yeah, that's just aesthetictrainingacademy.com.
Yeah, we'll make sure too. All of those are in the show notes. That sounds like an awesome resource. I'm excited to go check out and do some digging too. Yeah, Dr. Rohr, I'd love to have you back sometimes. Like I said, I had like 4 categories of questions, and I love the conversation. I think we got to one chunk, but that was
Yeah.
super invaluable. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. This podcast is a production of Med Spa Magic Marketing. If your med spa or aesthetic practice is in need of digital marketing services, help with advertising on Facebook, Instagram, Google, lead generation, and booking more appointments, please visit medspamagicmarketing.com.